Welcome to Deloitte Virtual Perspectives. I'm Roger Nanney, Vice Chairman at Deloitte and the National Managing Partner of Deloitte Growth Enterprise Services, a team dedicated to serving mid-market and privately held companies. Recent reports point to an improving job market. The private sector has been adding jobs and the unemployment rate now stands at 5.8%. Yet there are underlying labor market trends that are directly impacting businesses and particularly the mid-market. Our nation's labor participation rate is the lowest it's been since 1978. And there's a lot of attention being drawn to the skills gap. Companies are having trouble finding employees with the skills needed to do the work. It goes without saying that businesses need talent to sustain growth. The mid-market, being the engine of our economy, deserves special attention in that regard. This morning, we released our Mid-Market Perspectives Report, which gauges the sentiments of 500 mid-market executives on the direction of the economy and their businesses. Our findings show that 63% of mid-market companies are expecting to increase hiring in the next year. Yet, nearly the same amount say that it is difficult to find new employees with the skills and education to meet the needs of their business. Today, I'm joined by a panel of mid-market CEOs to get their views on the current economic environment, the job market, and strategies to address the shortage of talent. With that, I'll turn the discussion over to our moderator, Liz Claman, anchor Fox Business Network.
Thank you so much, Roger, and thanks for hosting today's discussion. Joining us today, Charles Besser. He's president and founder and CEO of Intersport. Michael Dowling, president and CEO of North Shore Long Island Jewish Health System. And Steven Rudnitsky. He's president and CEO of Dolce Hotels and Resorts. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for being here. We have a fount of information within all three of you for mid-market people watching who are dying for ideas when it comes to attracting and retaining great employees. This is not an easy thing to do,
No, it's not.
Especially when we have cross currents of what Roger just pointed out. We've had many, many quarters, many, many months where we've seen plus 200,000 job growth, and yet the labor participation rate seems very slow. I need to know, you guys are in the trenches, how does the job market look to you one day before tomorrow's November jobs report? Charlie, I'll start with you.
I think the job market is pretty strong, but the challenge to find great people continues. It is an ongoing challenge. It is something that we spend an inordinate, probably it's not inordinate anymore. We spend a ton of time looking for great people and trying to figure out how to recruit them, how to retain them, and how to make them be a contributor to our culture. It's a huge issue for us.
Okay, that is the perfect thing because a lot of people watching have the same problem. Michael, sort of in the macro picture, you as a guy who runs hospitals, what, 19 right now?
19 hospitals right now.
What does the overall economic picture look to you and the hiring picture look like to you?
Well, overall in the economy, I would agree that the economy, I think, is picking up. I think it is, we can be a little bit optimistic. The issue that I question, though, is longer term to make sure that we make the transformative institutional changes in the educational systems so that the employees of the future are prepared for the world of business that is being developed and being created. So you've got to be looking not just only short term, but long term. In our business at the moment, it's growing. Healthcare is one of the major employers. We are the biggest employer in New York State. And healthcare in general, as an employer, is creating new jobs all the time, different kind of jobs than in the past. We, for example, bring in about 125 new people every week. And I don't have a shortage of finding those people, of finding bodies. The question, going back to what was just said, is finding the people that can meet the talents that are required in the business as it evolves. Because business is evolving, education is not necessarily doing so.
Yeah, that's sort of the foundation upon which we try and build our businesses, Steve. Being in the hospitality business, probably hurt by the recession. Is your business coming back? Talk about how you sense the economy's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly here in North America, the lodging industry, from the lens of the lodging industry, we clearly go through cycles, and the cycles of growth typically run about 7 years. And if you look at this cycle, we're about 46 months into a very positive set of trends, both from a transient standpoint, both in the leisure area as well as in the business area. But we're also starting to see what comes back last is the group business, the corporate customers, the likes of Deloitte, if you will, that are coming back in because they're bringing in more employees to train and develop and for management meetings, et cetera, that we see. So overall, we've definitely seen some very positive growth in North America, and we expect that to continue in the lodging industry, primarily because we see a lot more hiring and we see a need for a lot more training and development of employees across the corporate sector that we work with.
Well, you guys all three referenced the skills gap, and Deloitte just came out with this brand new report, which is fascinating because it doesn't strike a totally negative picture at all out there. Exactly what you have said is in this report, that things are starting to look better. But now the challenge becomes for mid-market companies, which are the real job creators, right, of the entire nation, is to attract great talent, to make sure they're the appropriate people, and to retain them. Would you say that the skills gap is the biggest problem here? That you have a position open that pays pretty well, Charlie, but you can't find enough people who can actually cut the mustard in the job?
Correct. So what we do is we work, as I said, we work really hard at this. We've built a network of folks that are talking to us on a regular basis about who's great, and we're asking all the time, who's great at this, who's great at that, who's great at this. All the time, we are constantly searching. This is a major effort that we undergo all the time. So when we find somebody that's great, we recruit the heck out of them. I mean, we literally, it's like a kid being recruited by a college. We get after it, we recruit them, and we do the deep dive and try to get to know who they are, try to learn as much about them as you possibly can. But as I'm sure you guys know, you don't really know what you've got till you own it. Meaning you think you've got somebody great, you've recruited them hard, and you've worked very hard to make sure that you think they're the right person, and you bring them in, and it's kind of, good Lord, please, I hope I was right. The most important decisions you make in life and the most important decisions you make in business are about people. And it is not easy. And you can try as hard as you can to try to boil it all down, but it is just not easy. And you're wrong. Sometimes you're wrong. When you're wrong, it's usually not the candidate that made the mistake. We made a mistake. So we work very hard at this. It's and I know all middle market people go through this. I mean, it's hard. All businesses go through it.
Steve, what's the trick? I'm sure you have people coming in and out of your office constantly or through HR, but at a time where the job market is tightening, and again, that's the good news, right? We have seen a tightening and improving job market. There are still people sitting on the sidelines. You just heard Roger talk about this very low labor participation rate. Yep. How do you get, and I'm not sure it's a business problem, could be a government problem, getting people back into the job search and then into your organization in appropriate positions?
Well, recruiting people, to your point, is probably one of the most important things we do. And in fact, the market has gotten a lot stronger, and the competition for the best and the brightest, we like to hire the best possible athlete and then train them accordingly. It's gotten tighter because the bigger corporations are obviously out there, and sometimes often with better packages and perhaps more well-known brands even. So you really have to be incredibly competitive, very thoughtful, and you have to have a pretty clear process when you do recruit people. By way of example, when we recruit somebody through our HR department, we make sure they touch at least 4 or 5 direct reports of mine, and then we sit around the table and we discuss the person at length to make sure we really have gotten the right person, or we think we've gotten the best possible person, because that's what's really going to deliver you the success of in an environment where, again, things are getting much tighter for us.
Michael, you hire a broad spectrum of people, everyone from real scientists to janitors, I would imagine.
Yes.
Is there a common thread that runs through your hiring process?
Well, we have a very, very elaborate process of pre-screening and searching for the proper type of an employee. And there are two types of skills. I would break it down. There is the technical skill, so that somebody can actually do the technical work. And then there is what we consider soft skills, which is attitude, commitment, passion, relationship skills, team building skills. You have to have both. But I would say that the latter ones, the whole attitudinal issue, is probably one of the more important. And what we do is we do our best to bring people in, and then we have a very, very elaborate in-house training program. Because I think business has a real responsibility here to make sure that they become educational institutions as well for their own employees once they get in.
Well, because the schools and the government are not doing it either enough or appropriately.
I would say that is correct to a large extent. Also is to develop relationships with the schools. So we have a Center for Workforce Readiness. So we work with dozens of high schools, try to identify at the intermediate high school level and high school level, and even below that, expose these kids to the potential careers in healthcare, because that's a very unique profession to be in. Expose them to those potential career choices, and then work with them and the schools to modify the curricula and give the students the experience inside the company. Like yesterday, I sat in with 30 students that were in our organization getting presentations on science, on engineering, on research, to kids from high school. And we try to get them at that level so that in the future, they're much more adaptable and much more appropriate to bring into the organization.
Well, the skills issue matters, and you can see it in the Deloitte report that's just out. And I encourage everybody who's watching to read that report, because you'll say, yes, me too, but the solutions, and that's what we're about here, are very much about how to address that, especially from that mid-market $50 million to $1 billion market cap kind of company. And when you're looking at the competition, which is the bigger corporations, right, trying to steal the real great talent, how do you draw them, Steve, to your smaller yet perhaps more potential for their career type of company?
Well, we hopefully deliver it by messaging our culture and the type of culture that our environment, the type of environment that drives, a real point of difference relative to the big organizations of which I've come through most of them, many of them at least.
Well, say a few. I want people to know who you guys are.
I've been fortunate enough to work for some world-class companies like Johnson & Johnson and PepsiCo and Kraft Foods and Sendint. So I've been in some major corporations, and they're all great, and they all are wonderful academies. But smaller companies, the advantage of working for a smaller company is it's a much closer knit group as a general rule. It should be much more team oriented, with hopefully a lot less politics, and with a set of core values that are pretty clear to everybody from the very beginning around integrity, around being customer focused, about results oriented, and about being involved in the community. And when people see that, particularly the millennials, which we are all looking at right now as the next wave of employees in a very big way, and what they look for, we've got to be prepared for that, and we've got to be working and be mindful of the new employees that are coming in, and how our culture and how we deliver both at our property and at corporate, how we deliver against those needs.
Let me kind of jump in there for a second.
Sure.
Something Michael said, which I think is right on the money, is trying to build this combination of skills and passion. And in my judgment, in my experience, this is for all those middle market folks out there trying to run a business. In my opinion, I want to go for the stuff that you can't teach, which is you can't teach passion, you can't teach persistence, you can't teach I'm the first one in and the last one out. You can't teach I'm never going to give up. I think you can teach the skills, maybe not all of them, but you got a heck of a lot better chance to teach the skills than you do. So if we've got somebody that is coming in that is passionate, wants to make a statement, is aggressive about their career and their future, wants to be part of a great culture, boy, that gets 10 red stars over here. And then over here on the skills, we're going to figure out how to. Plus, if they've got that kind of passion, they're already smart. They've got it figured out.
Let me just say that in the report, and this is perfect, because the mid-market people are frustrated. 64% of them in the Deloitte report said they are challenged with finding new employees with skills and education to meet the needs of their business. So you do what Michael's doing.
Right.
You do what the onus is on the business. That's what I'm
Correct.
hearing you guys say.
Yep.
To say, forget it. I'm not going to wait and find these people who show up. I have to train them.
You have to be, it's leadership in my view, because the fundamental aspect of any successful business are the people that you've got. So if you want to have a successful business, you've got to have the right people. So therefore you've got to take the leadership responsibility to go and help create those people and work with the educational institutions, work with the high school, work with the colleges, try to adapt the curricula that they have, try to help them identify the right kinds of people that can get into certain career tracks. Also work with the faculty in the schools, which we do. And we start our own educational programs. For example, this coming year...
That costs money, doesn't it, though?
Yes, but it's an investment in
Great
your human
investment.
capital.
Yep.
So like next, I have 11,000 nurses, but so I'm starting my own nursing school next year.
You should be.
Really?
Yes, because we spend an awful lot of time re-educating people after they come out of many current schools. So it's a lot easier for me to be working and to do it from the beginning. I actually sent 70 of my nurses to get their doctorates so that I would have my own doctorally trained faculty in preparation. Because without great nurses in healthcare, you can't have a great healthcare
Well,
system.
Steve, if somebody came to your office and said, I would like to apply for the job of, and it's a middle management position, I don't have that experience, but I'll come in early, I'll stay late, I will watch from the best, I'm moldable, I don't have bad habits set. Would you be willing to go with that person?
Well, I mean, there's somewhat limited information, but sure. I mean, we'd want to really look at the person, understand what their background is, understand their, what they've succeeded in, what their developmental needs are, and we'd want to run them through the traps and then have the right onboarding programs, the right training programs in place, which we have, and the right ongoing coaching and feedback that all managers are trained to give. So, as I mentioned earlier, if that person is really the best athlete, and it's something that you said too, we want to hire the person that is coachable, because you can fix a learning problem, you can't fix an attitude problem.
You never can.
So you never can. So you really want to focus on the best athlete, the people that are really eager to learn and eager to be part of a team.
And once you get them in the door, now we're shifting the discussion from you've got them, how do you hold on to them? How do you retain them? We all know millennials, our kids or some of them, but who
Yes, they are
always looking for the next best thing. So employee retention is also at the forefront of a lot of mid-market people's minds who participated in the Deloitte survey. What is the number one thing that you do to retain, to keep these people?
I think it's all about the culture. I think you've got to feel like you're part of a team that is going to accomplish something and that everybody's pulling together. You've got to build that culture. It's been said many times, culture trumps strategy, and I absolutely believe that.
Does it trump money and salaries?
I think there's a lot of studies that say that it does, as long as you're close. I mean, you've got to be close. But one of the things we do at our place is we tell everybody, I'd be more than happy to have you take over the corner office. If you're good enough, be my guest. There are no limits on what you can do at our organization. We're not putting any caps on anybody on their opportunity to learn, or their opportunity to earn. We want folks to understand that. But for us, we're working on culture. We're trying to make everybody understand what it is we're trying to do. We're trying to simplify it, which is hard to do, right? Really simplify it so that everybody knows that what they're doing is going to have an impact on everyone. And that kind of team feeling really works. It really works. And so that's what we do. That's kind of how we go at it.
I believe very strongly that people want to belong to something.
Correct.
Not just work for something.
100% right.
So they want to belong to an organization where they see that it is trying to do the right thing, especially millennials, in my view. They want to understand that this organization is focused on doing the right thing, that they understand the goals, and they also want to see the possibilities that they can move around the organization, and there is possibilities for advancement. And also there is this life-work balance issue that the younger population, I think, is much more concerned about than many of us. We're baby boomers, right? So we're from a whole different generation. So when you look at the new employees coming in, we have to change the way we think about them.
Right.
We're not hiring us,
right,
because we come from a different time. We're hiring a different group of people who have some different interests, And that's our customer base, and that's our employee base.
So you're saying jettison the hire in our own image mentality and go more for people who perhaps have different perspectives and a different background.
Because they do have different perspectives, and they do have different backgrounds. And I also want to say, though, that there is amazing talent in that group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our job as employers, and I think it is our responsibility and our obligation, is how do we mine that talent? How do we mine that interest? Rather than just saying you either have it or you don't, if we can see it attitudinally, then you can mine it and grow it. And we have found major evidence in our organization about the ability to be able to do that.
Steve?
Yeah, I was just going to hitchhike on your point because I think it's a great one. I mean, you want to have an organization that looks like the community that you are appealing to. So along those same lines, you want to have diversity of thought as one of the core metrics. And the only way you really capture that is if you really capture a collection of people that come from different walks of life and different experiences. And that really embraces a lot of the people that are already in the organization because they recognize that you get it. And more importantly than just our employees recognizing that we get it, but also our guests, our customers recognize that we get it. When an organization looks and feels like the guests or the consumers that they're appealing to, you've got a much stronger foundation.
And especially in a markets like where some of us are, where you have 100 languages spoken, different ethnic, religious, cultural groups. And it's a wonderful milieu of educational opportunity, even only to learn about one another, and you've got to be creating that opportunity. Right. I, for example...
That's part of the culture.
It's part of the culture. In our organization, I meet every new employee. So I spend 3 hours every Monday morning.
No matter what their position.
No matter what their position. Because to me, the person who parks the car, and the person who's the front office desk person, or the person who's in the laundry, are just as important as other people in the organization. They have fundamental important roles. And if they understand that you feel that they're important and what they do is important and contributes to the organization, they want to belong. And that's important. That's why I spend personal time on it. And I think it's the most valuable time I spend, and I in fact love it because I get to see who's coming in.
So you're showing a leadership skill, and I now want to segue to leadership. I think one of the most important things that people talk about in an organization is that all-important leadership concept. But Charlie, what makes a strong leader? How do you get people to follow you?
Well, and I think you have to do the right thing a lot on a regular basis. I think you've got to demonstrate managerial courage, and I think that's making hard decisions about people. I think that a great group, if you're really building a team of stars, and if there are folks that are very nice and good people but just aren't performing, I think that everyone expects you to, as the leader, to take that difficult step and give that person an opportunity to really go build a life somewhere else because they're not getting it done with us. And I think
doesn't it bring morale down when other people are killing themselves?
It absolutely brings morale down. And I'll tell you something. There's a great sports analogy, and it's an easy one. You take a look at the New England Patriots. They win the Super Bowl, and within 2 or 3 weeks, they have let go 4 or 5 starters because they're trying to get better. They just won the Super Bowl, but they're trying to get better. The San Francisco Giants just won the World Series. There's changes happening there. So those are great analogies for a middle market business person. You've always got to be thinking about who have I got on the field, and is that position being played as well as it can possibly be played? And if it's not, if the third baseman, continuing this analogy, if the third baseman's not letting the ball go through, the second baseman and all the rest of these guys are going to say, when is the manager going to step up and take care of this problem?
Morale, yeah.
So I think managerial courage it's hard, and I think it's a big issue, and I think it's a big part of leadership.
Well then, Steve, from being a leader to actually developing leaders, sometimes you get a person who's doing such a great job in the position you hired them for that you don't want them to have aspirations, or do you? And how do you develop leadership at an appropriate pace?
Well, you absolutely want to develop leadership. I mean, great leaders make sure that they have their respective backfills in place. That's what a real level 5 leader ultimately is. But leaders, in order to really build leaders, you have to be a leader and demonstrate leadership skills. And the best way to do that is to make absolutely certain that you are breaking down leaders break down barriers so that the people closest to the customers or closest to the guests can get the right things done. And that is something that I've learned through years of experience and years of training, that you got to make sure you break down those barriers. And the other thing that leaders do with 4 easy words is leaders make a difference. So with coaching and training and demonstrating how they can make a difference, how hopefully I make a difference on any particular day, will be illustrative enough for them to understand and grow and build on.
Really good.
You know, the leadership to me is different than management.
Yeah.
I mean, the best definition of leadership that I've ever come across is that leadership is about managing the present, selectively forgetting the past, and creating the future. Leaders create a future direction, and they inspire. And you want people to be able to follow you because they want to, not because they have to. Right. If they want to, you've created a very, very good culture. So we, for example, have major leadership training programs, and we select high potentials. We're in the middle of doing it now. We select 100 high potentials every year, put them into a 2-year leadership training program, have succession plans at every level. It has to be a major, major investment by the organization and be represented by the CEO of the organization. Yeah. They can't just say, by the way, you HR, you handle all this for me. It's not going to work that way. They got to see you leading the charge.
Right. He just touched on an important word, and that is inspire. You know, leaders inspire, but the people have to motivate themselves. It's our job as leaders to inspire our respective employees. It's their jobs to be it's their job to really find ways of being motivated to deliver.
Right. You know, and not expect and not feel that you have an entitlement to something.
Of course.
You know, we push down at our place. We push down leadership. Especially as it relates to talent, down to our divisional leaders, so that they are measured. How are they doing in recruiting new people? How are they doing in evaluating and training their current people? And have they had the managerial courage to make a move to move someone out when they had to move someone out? So I think that gives them a great opportunity for them within their business unit to demonstrate leadership on their part.
But you definitely have to give people hope that there is a
Definitely.
Mobility opportunity to move up.
For sure.
Correct?
Absolutely. For sure. Absolutely. That's what inspires
You
people.
wouldn't want an employee who didn't want to improve and get better
Correct.
and better, right?
Absolutely.
Who wants that?
This is why also
Nobody.
you got to be optimistic. I mean, who wants to watch somebody talk about everything is bad? Oh my God, is it terrible? The economy is bad. You've got to be upbeat. Yep. You know, you want people to be expecting that there is optimism, there is potential.
Isn't that one of the number one characteristics of small and medium businesses, is that optimism and the can-do belief that, you know what, I can't control DC.
Yep.
I cannot control what's happening in Washington. I'm just going to go for it. And you know, I was doing a little bit of study and found that IBM, Federal Express, they were launched during recessions.
Right.
And so this whole blame the economy
It's not working.
Doesn't
help at all.
It's a waste of time.
It is a complete waste of time. It does not help.
You're affected by outside events, but you're not defined by them.
Correct.
It's another way to look at it. You define your own circumstance.
Well, one of the things that I've heard all of you talk about here when you're looking to hire is attitude, and then when you're looking to retain is the culture and the attitude of the actual organization. And I'm reminded of Teddy Roosevelt's comment that when somebody asks you to do something you don't know how to do, say, "Sure, I can," and then start doing it.
I've done that.
So as I think we all have. How did we get to where we are?
We certainly
But as
have.
we finish up, I guess I just want to know the thing that you are most dying to hear with employees that come across your office door.
I'm most interested in learning in seeing if they really want to know about what we are doing and where we are going, and can they have a significant role in it, and also I love to know that they've got something to prove. I love that. If somebody said, this is the platform that I've been looking for, I've got something to prove, I want to prove that I can actually make a difference.
Michael?
I would say passion and desire, and to not use the word I can't.
Ever.
Not eliminate I can't. I want somebody to say, yes, I can. And when you have an attitude that says, yes, I can, everything is possible.
Yeah, pretty simply, I look for somebody who wants a career as opposed to a job. Somebody who's got, has the capacity to be a thought leader and a team player. Because I think we can get there with those few attributes.
Well, Deloitte was founded in 1845 by a guy who did the same thing. And look at the organization today. So that's the basis upon which a lot of middle market companies might look at and say, I can do that too. Thank you so much for talking about the Virtual Perspectives survey here, which I think is extremely valuable for all of us. I am so honored to have you. Steve, Michael, Charlie, great discussion. And we thank all of you for joining us here today. Have a wonderful day, and we wish you the best of luck.